Willard Grayson is a brilliant writer and inventor who creates unique devices in his home in London in the early 20th century. He dreams of the future and uses his scientific knowledge to explore possible ways to travel through time. Wells is a man who believes in progress and that the future will be filled with wonders. He is surrounded by interesting people, including his friend, a police inspector, who is also immersed in the investigation of serial murders taking place in London. At the same time, the sinister figure of Jack the Ripper, who is known to be a gruesome killer, roams the city. His actions lead to panic among the townspeople, and Wells begins to wonder how he can be stopped. Wells decides that his invention, a time machine, could be the solution to this problem. He believes that if he can catch the Ripper in his own time, he can prevent his atrocities. As Wells completes his time machine, he receives news that the Ripper has committed another murder. At this point, Wells makes the decision to use his machine to travel to the future to find and stop the Ripper. He sets the machine to the date 1979 and steps into it and travels to a new time. Upon arriving in the year 1979, Wells finds himself in a modern world full of unusual technology and a new way of life that amazes him. He explores the city, meets new people, and begins to realize how much society has changed. But at the same time, he realizes that his task is not yet complete. Wells quickly realizes that Jack the Ripper has also been transported to this time. Now he needs to find him before he starts killing again. Soon Wells meets a woman named Amy who works at the local museum. She charms him with her openness and curiosity, as well as her ability to accept his oddities. Wells tells her about his time and what he is looking for. Amy thinks he is crazy, but at the same time she is interested in being around him. Their relationship develops and Wells begins to feel a strong attraction to Amy. Parallel to this, the plot develops the line of Jack the Ripper. He, like Wells, finds himself in a new time, and his instincts have not died down. He begins to kill again, and the police in the year 1979 try to catch him. Wells, realizing that he needs to act quickly, decides to use his knowledge of the Ripper's crimes to understand his motives and predict his actions. Wells begins to explore the various streets of the city, using old investigative techniques that were popular in his time, and soon finds clues that lead him to the Ripper. He realizes that the killer uses his old tricks to avoid the police and that he often attacks women. This leads Wells to the idea that he needs to protect Amy from the Ripper, who might be interested in her. Meanwhile, Amy becomes increasingly fascinated by Wells and begins to see him not only as a genius, but as a man with deep inner feelings. She senses that Wells is looking for something more than just a criminal. In their dialogues, Wells shares his dreams for the future, how he would like to change the world for the better, and Amy is inspired by his ideas. She begins to see him not only as a hero, but as someone who needs support and love. Gradually, a romance develops between them. Amy and Wells begin to spend time together, discussing the future and dreaming of what is to come. They walk around the city, familiarizing themselves with its culture, and Amy shows Wells how the world has changed. Wells in turn shares with her his knowledge of how the world was in his time, and they laugh together at the difference in their experiences. Time passes, however, and the Ripper continues to hide. Wells realizes that he needs to stop him urgently or he could lose not only Amy, but a chance to change the course of events. He devises a plan to catch the Ripper using his knowledge and the technology of his time. Wells decides to organize a trap to lure the Ripper to a specific location where he can catch him. In the process of preparing for the trap, Wells is faced with inner doubts. He begins to think that maybe if he catches the Ripper, it will change not only his own fate, but Amy's fate as well. He realizes that his feelings for her are growing stronger and that he cannot let his enemy hurt her. Wells deeply realizes that his mission now involves not only his duties as a scientist, but also his feelings. Finally, the moment of truth arrives. Wells sets a trap, and the Ripper, smelling the odor of blood and violence, cannot resist. In anticipation of the attack, Wells and Amy hide in an abandoned building. When the Ripper enters, an intense game of wits begins. Wells uses his knowledge and wit to lure the Ripper into a trap. In this moment, Amy shows her courage and willingness to protect Wells, and it brings them very close together. When the Ripper falls into the trap, the struggle begins. Wells, despite all his scientific achievements, realizes that he has no experience in hand-to-hand combat. He tries to use his time machine as a means to control the situation, but the Ripper proves to be more cunning. During the tense struggle, the Ripper is one step ahead, and he eventually captures Amy, threatening her life at this critical moment. When Wells feels he has lost everything, he realizes that his only hope of salvation is time. With the help of a time machine, he travels back to a time when the Ripper is just beginning his atrocities, and uses his knowledge to prevent any actions that could lead to Amy's death. However, even after going back in time, Wells realizes that his feelings for Amy are so strong that he can't just leave her. He decides to do whatever he can to protect her, and ends up creating a parallel reality where they can be together without the threat of the Ripper. When Wells returns to the year 1979, he finds that the world has changed. His actions in the past have caused the Ripper to no longer exist, and Amy is still by his side. They are happy, and Wells realizes that the real power of time is not only the ability to travel, but also the ability to create a new future full of hope and love. Wells and Amy begin a new life full of adventure, and he realizes that now they can face any challenges together. This new reality gives Wells the opportunity to become not only a scientist, but also a man capable of love and deep human connection.